Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for being here.
Okay, great. Yes, ma'am.
My friend, our ranking member, said that you are knuckling under to the big bank lobbyists. Is that true?
No,
It seems to me that the big picture should not go unnoticed. Do you recall a year or two ago when inflation was raging? I think its peak was about 9%. Many economists and other experts, based in part on history, said that you were going to have to provoke high unemployment and put our country into recession in order to get inflation down. Do you recall that?
very, very well.
Are we in a recession?
We are not.
Would you, as an American, trade places right now with Germany in terms of the economy?
No, I sure wouldn't.
How about China?
No, wouldn't trade places.
How about France?
No, thanks.
Things aren't perfect. Inflation's obviously still sticky, and long rates are too high, which I want to talk about in a second. But the fact is, knock on wood, we have experienced a soft landing, haven't we?
Not for me to say, really. I'll let others
Well,
make
have we
that.
experienced a hard landing?
No, we sure
Are
haven't.
we in a recession?
No, we're not.
I call that a soft landing. And it seems to me that you and some of the ladies and gentlemen who are your colleagues at the Federal Reserve behind you deserve some credit for that.
Thank you.
I don't know why you don't take the credit. Everybody else in Washington, D.C. does. Again, I'm not saying things are perfect, but I never imagined that our landing could be this soft, albeit not perfect. And I wanted to thank you and your colleagues for that effort. You sure didn't get any help from Congress and on the our president on the fiscal side. I don't expect you to comment on that. You and the Federal Reserve can to a large extent control short rates, can't you?
Yes.
Through the Open Market Committee. You can't control long rates, though, can you?
No, we can't.
Why is that?
So a lot of things go into long rates, and one of them is the expected future short rate of Fed policy, but many, many other things go in. Expectations of inflation in the longer run, the sort of risks around the economy and around the budget deficit go into something called the term premium, which is the part we can't explain when we do these decompositions. And so, it's set by supply and demand in the bond market at the long end, and we're not particularly. We have some influence, but mostly not.
Many Americans are looking at short rates and looking at the Fed's behavior and how you reduce inflation, but they don't see the long rates going down, and obviously that affects mortgage rates. And I would encourage you and your colleagues to spend some time explaining to the American people why that is. Final question. If you went home tonight and Mayor Powell, your spouse, said, I got a call today from our bank, and they're They're debanking us. They're worried about their reputational risk because they don't like our politics. Would you think that fair?
No, I sure wouldn't. And as I mentioned earlier, I too am troubled by the quantity of these reports, and really want to understand better why this is happening. One theory is that banks are just very risk averse around BSA and money laundering, and that's because we're so tough on them, and that they just don't. Any red flag is enough. But it may be that this whole thing with reputation risk needs to be thought about. It's actually coming out of our one manual that we use. We're taking that concept out, the manual that we've been using for account access, for master accounts. We're just going to take that out. But I think this needs a fresh look, and I think it's time for that, and we're going to do that.
Well, I've asked our chairman, and he has agreed to invite some of the CEOs of some of the banks that have been debanking people. The CEOs,
Yes.
not their lawyers, not their PR consultants,
Not the lobbyists.
not their priests, them, the CEOs, to come in and let's talk about this and find out what the hell's been going on.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy.
Mr. Director, worry not, we'll make sure your agency is adequately funded. This judge you arrested in Wisconsin, she was breaking federal law, wasn't she?
Yes, that's why we arrested her.
She was helping an illegal immigrant escape being taken into custody. Is that right?
Yes, and the field agents decided to open the case, work the case.
And as Americans, do we get to pick and choose which laws we want to follow?
We do not.
If you're a state court judge, do you get to decide you don't want to follow federal law?
No.
And if you violate federal law, you get arrested, don't you?
Yes, Senator.
That's called equal treatment under the law, isn't it?
Yes, Senator.
You remember Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, don't you?
Yes, Senator.
Mr. Strzok worked for the FBI. Mr. Strzok worked for the FBI. I think Ms. Page worked for Justice. The Inspector General found in its investigation that they hated President Trump and they really wanted Secretary Clinton to win. Is that true?
That's correct, sir.
And this would be the same same Ms. Page who sent an email to Mr. Strzok with whom she was having an affair. Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right? And Mr. Strzok, with the FBI, senior official at the FBI, replied, quote, no, he won't. We'll stop it. Did I read that correctly?
You did, Senator.
Okay. Now, Ms. Page got quit before she could get fired. Mr. Strzok was fired. And predictably, they filed a lawsuit because in Washington, it's easier to divorce your spouse than it is to fire a federal employee. Why did the FBI give Mr. Strzok $1.2 million and Ms. Page $800,000 to settle a lawsuit?
Senator, I do not know that settlement was reached in the prior administration.
Who made the decision?
The prior Department of Justice.
Who in the prior Department of Justice?
The settlement for that kind of case can only come from the Attorney General, which would be Attorney General Merrick Garland.
So the Attorney General decided to give Mr. Strzok $1.2 million and Ms. Page $800,000 after they were fired after actively interfering in the 2016 election. Is that right?
My understanding is that was a settlement they agreed to.
Pass me the sick bucket, please. The Hunter Biden laptop. In October of 2016, shortly before the election, the New York Post wrote a story that was widely covered talking about Mr. Hunter Biden's influence peddling scheme based on his laptop. A couple of weeks later, Secretary of State soon-to-be Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, organized a group of 51 so-called intelligence experts. Had some real rock stars on the list. Jim Clapper, John Brennan, Michael Hayden, Leon Panetta, and they said, oh, no, the story in the New York Post is not true. It's based on Russian disinformation. You remember that?
I do, Senator, as the lead investigator for Russiagate for the House Intel Committee.
Yeah. The FBI had the laptop for 10 months, hadn't they?
They did, Senator.
So the FBI knew right before the election that it wasn't Russian disinformation, didn't they?
And that was confirmed by the Inspector General's report.
Yeah. Who at the FBI refused to let the FBI tell the American people the truth?
I don't have that name in front of me, sir.
Well, would you look?
I will, sir.
I'd like to know. I'd like a name, not a division. I'd like the name. A person with a brain and a beating heart.
Yes, sir.
Did Jeffrey Epstein hang himself or did somebody kill him?
Senator, I believe he hung himself in a cell in the Metropolitan Detention Center.
Are you going to release all the information about that?
Senator, we are working through that right now with the Department of Justice.
When do you think you'll have it done, Cash?
I think in the near future, sir.
Like before I die?
Senator, we've been working on that, and we're doing it in a way that protects victims and also doesn't put out into the ether information that is irrelevant for production of the public, such as CSAM.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Reed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director. As you're well aware, Doge.
Madam
Well, I need a little help from a chair that respects the members of the
Madam
committee. I'm sorry,
Secretary.
Madam Chair. This is
You pretty much secured the southern border, haven't you?
Yes, sir. The CBP,
And
this president have.
that upsets some of my colleagues, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. They say you've done it the wrong way, haven't they? Could you answer that?
Yes, sir. They do say that.
Do you think they're upset because you supposedly did it the wrong way, or you think they're upset that you did it at all?
I think they're upset that by President Trump enforcing the law, it happened so quickly and successfully.
Yeah. Now, when President Biden came into office, the first thing he did was get rid of all of the things we were doing to stop people from coming into our country illegally, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, it was like the Price is Right. Come on down. Except he said, come on in. And most of my Democratic colleagues went along with that, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they did.
In fact, they cheered him on, didn't they? Is that a yes?
Yes, sir.
How many people do you think President Biden let into our country illegally? Just give me a ballpark figure.
Sir, we don't know for certain, but we believe it could be upwards to 20 million people that are illegally in this country.
So that's like adding 10 Nebraskas to our country, isn't it?
That's correct.
Why do you think President Biden and my Democratic colleagues did that? Do you think they believe in open borders?
I think they believed in open borders and letting people come into this country that would affect our society and criminals. Those other countries emptying out the worst of the worst, their mental institutions, their prisons came in here and jeopardized, and known terrorists.
Well, only one or two circumstances are possible, it seems to me. Either President Biden and the Democrats who supported him believe in open borders, or the people that President Biden put in charge of securing the border, you wouldn't trust to run a snowball stand, right?
That is correct.
So nobody is that incompetent. So it has to be, they just believe in open borders, do they not?
Yes, because I know the people who were securing the border and they weren't allowed to do their
Do
job.
you think they believe that vetting people at the border is racist?
Yes, I do. I think by the way they allowed people in and granted them immediate parole
Do
status.
you think that President Biden and some of my Democratic colleagues, I don't want to paint with too broad a brush, Madam Secretary, thought of these foreign nationals in our country illegally as potential new voters?
I do, sir.
Okay. If you're an ordinary American and you oppose illegal immigration, but you support legal immigration, does that make you a racist?
No, sir. No, sir, not at all. It just means that you believe there should be a rule of law, and that's what America was built on.
And that's what you've been enforcing, right?
Exactly. We have been following the Constitution and the rule of law in this country.
And I want to be sure I understand, because there's been a lot of confusing testimony here. You've secured the border, have you not?
This administration has, yes, sir.
And some of my colleagues are upset with you,
Yes, sir.
and they say you did it wrong.
Yes, sir.
And do you agree with me that what they're really upset about is that you did it at all?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to ask you a last question about our federal judiciary. I've said repeatedly that all of us has a moral and a civic obligation to follow federal orders, and I stand by that. But there have been a lot of national injunctions, universal injunctions issued to try to stop you from doing your job. Where were these judges when people were breaking the law and coming into our country illegally? Were any of them speaking up and issuing national injunctions against the Democrats?
I don't believe I can be specific about every single judge, but these judges that now are trying to stop us from enforcing our laws, I don't believe or recall them.
Can you
being
think,
vocal then.
Madam Secretary, of one single solitary federal judge who, when President Biden and my Democratic colleagues, not all of them, but many of them,
Gentleman's time has expired.
Secretary or Senator Murray went on over about 2 minutes, so I'm going to take a minute.
Senator Van
Well, if
Hollen
you
just got
can-
shut down.
Yes,
right
if
on
you
the
can,
zeros.
if you can finish your question.
Can you recall one single solitary federal judge when President Biden and my Democratic colleagues were letting 20 million people come into the country illegally?
I don't recall.
Can you think of
Thank
one
you.
single solitary judge
you.
that
This
is
issued
more
a
than-
national
Thank you.
injunction
This is more than
to
one
stop
question.
them?
No, I can't recall
I
one.
can't either. If there weren't
you,
for
Senator
double
Kennedy.
standards
Madam
around
Chair,
here,
Okay.
Madam
there
And
wouldn't
so
be any
Senator Peters-
standards at all, Madam Secretary.
Thank you.
Committee
Thank you,
downstairs.
Senator Kennedy.
I'd-
Senator Peters.
Madam, let me just say, let's apply the rules fairly. Senator Van Hollen was asking tough questions, but was shut down pretty immediately when his time was expired. Can we at least have a commitment, Madam Chair, that senators on this committee will be allowed to submit questions for the record,
Absolutely.
and that you will
Yes.
Absolutely.
ask the secretary to answer those questions?
You probably don't have to, but when most people go through TSA, they take your picture. They have a little camera there, and they say, "Look in the camera. We want to take your picture." Now, underneath it is this little bitty sign that you can barely see, and I think it's written in Sanskrit, that says, "This is optional." I won't let them take my picture.
I won't either, Senator.
And they promised us that they destroy the data, okay? Once again, I don't believe that Elvis is alive either. Senator Merkley and I have a bill. There's been no evidence that this has prevented any acts of terrorism. And I just don't know why the federal government has to collect this huge database of every American who flies picture.
I thank you for that. I couldn't agree with you more. I actually try to turn my head away from the camera when I go through and they're taking pictures. There's no need. I think Americans have a right to privacy. And I don't think you need a digital scan of my face to allow me to have the right to fly on an airplane. I think it's absolutely wrong. And what does it do to security? I don't think it breeds any more security in our airspace, on our airplanes. And so thank you for doing that work. I couldn't agree with you more.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Kennedy.
Mr. Secretary, how many employees were there at HHS when you took over?
82,000,
How many do you have today?
62,000.
Okay.
It's about the level it was in 2019, right before COVID.
Is this the first time that an institution in America has ever downsized?
I don't think so. I think private and public institutions have history.
Microsoft just announced that they were going to reduce their workforce by 6,000 people. You think that'll be the end of Microsoft?
Senator, we wouldn't have reduced
You
anybody.
think that'll be the end of Microsoft?
I don't think so, Senator.
Meta, I still call them Facebook, just announced they're going to reduce their workforce by 3,000 people. You think that'll be the end of Meta?
I imagine it will not.
Yeah. Think maybe the people at Meta know what they're doing?
I think that they do. They make a lot of money, Senator.
Do you hate NIH?
I love NIH. I grew up with NIH. I visited when I was a boy. I loved science, and those were my favorite afternoons, visiting the labs at NIH.
Do you hate medical research?
No, I think we need to lead the world in medical research in this country.
In fact, isn't it true, Mr. Secretary, that you would like to see more money spent on medical research?
Obviously, I'm the secretary of this department. No secretary wants to see his budget cut.
Well, one way of doing that, it seems to me, would be to stop some of the stealing. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Let's suppose you give NIH gives a university $100 million to research, for medical research, to research a cure. And that university takes $30 million of it, doesn't spend it on the research. They use it to subsidize the rest of their university. Does that show a commitment to medical research?
No, and I mentioned before the example of Stanford, which was taking 78% in indirect costs, and we don't know what they were spending.
That's theft, isn't it?
It's not a good
in
way to
Louisiana,
spend
we call
federal
that stealing.
taxpayer dollars.
We call that stealing. Is there any doubt in your mind that a lot of universities are taking this NIH money, which is supposed to be spent on medical research, and using it to fund other parts of their university? Is there any doubt in your mind, Bobby?
Oh, and Senator, the other people who are writing grants, like the Gates Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, they paid 10% to 15% in indirect costs. We were paying 50, 60, 70%.
So, in fact, what you're doing is adding money to medical research.
We will be able to fund many, many, many more studies by eliminating that $9 billion, at least part of that $9 billion cost.
Okay. I want to ask you about LAHEAP. Are you familiar with this GAO report they did on LAHEAP?
I am not, Senator.
They found, they audited 7 states. They found 11,000 dead people getting LAHEAP grants. You familiar with that?
No, but that is pretty typical of many of the other programs that we're working with.
They found prisoners getting grants, didn't they? Were they using the grants to heat their jail cell? They found 1,000 federal employees getting the grants with federal salaries that greatly exceeded the income limits. They found some of those folks living in million-dollar homes. I got 18 seconds. Why do we allow highly processed foods in America?
That's a complicated question, but it's driven by profits to a food industry that is making money by poisoning American kids, and they don't do it abroad. They make the same products for Canada and for Europe that do not contain many of those chemicals.
You understand, Mr. Secretary, there's nothing you can do that's going to make many of my Democratic colleagues happy. You get that, don't you?
I do understand. I'm coming to understand that, Senator.
Yes. Thank you.
Senator Murray, welcome. Nice to see you, and I'll turn it over to you for questions.
Thank you very much, Chair Capito, Senator Baldwin. I look forward to working with you both. Mr. Chairman, I look forward to you. We got a lot of work ahead of us.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Secretary, I want to go back to some of your earlier testimony, be sure I heard it correctly. The 76-day period you're talking about, that's the period between the time that President Trump was elected and President Biden left office. Is that right?
That is correct.
And during that short period of time, 76 days, how much taxpayer money went out the door of the Department of Energy?
From the Loan Program Office in loans and commitments, $93 billion. Well over twice as much as in the previous 15 years. So,
how do you vet and do due diligence on a loan in 76 days? One loan, much less $93 billion. How do you do it?
I think it's probably pretty clear it wasn't done in many cases. As I mentioned, I'm told I'm holding back clearly in place stuff. There is lots of funds that have gone out the door and commitments that were made from businesses that provided no business plan, no numbers about their own financial solvency or how this project
So
can
you're
actually
telling
work.
me that the Department of Energy, in the 76-day period, before their boss was going to leave office, gave or loaned money to entities that had no business plan?
Correct.
No financials?
Correct. A number of those were were before the 76-day period as well. I've come in with great concern about how this institution, this great American institution, has been run and how American taxpayer money has been handled. I'm sorry everyone's upset that we're taking some time to do it, but what we've seen and what the record shows
I'm
is
not
just
upset. Could it be that a lot of people say you haven't returned your calls? Could it be that you and your colleagues have returned the calls, but the people calling just didn't like the answer? Could that be a possibility?
I'm not aware of that. You know, I give my cell phone number to any senator that wants
I know you
it,
do.
and I return my calls.
I mean, has your department gone dark? Somebody said your department's gone dark. Is it dark over there?
It doesn't look dark behind me.
I don't see any of you sitting on your hands. Somebody made that charge. I see everybody's hands. Let me ask you something else, Mr. Secretary. Does anybody ever come to the Department of Energy to get some of this free money and lie to you?
I have not experienced that, but I think it's a reasonable assumption that has happened.
Does anybody ever come to you, or is it conceivable that some of these folks that heard about this free money came to you with a half-baked idea?
I think it's very conceivable. In fact, I've seen such plans that were half-baked would be charitable.
That didn't have a business plan, right?
Correct. A promise to develop one to find a location.
Just give me the
to-
money and I'll develop the plan later.
Correct.
And now you're going back through, not money that's already been contracted, but you're going back through and checking each one of these loans and these grants to make sure there was no stealing, aren't you?
We are.
And
We
you
are.
make sure there was no incompetence, aren't you? Is that correct?
We're looking at that, and yeah, my blood pressure is rising right now just thinking about what we have seen and what did happen at the department.
And you're going to tell some of these boondoggles no, aren't you?
That's correct.
And they're going to be upset, aren't they?
That's correct.
And they ought to be upset, shouldn't they?
I don't think they should be upset. I think they should be ashamed.
It's rare that I'm speechless. But I want to be sure I understood. The people running the Department of Energy for President Biden's administration shoveled $93 billion, not million, $93 billion out the door in 76 days, and it just happened to be the time between when President Trump was elected and President Biden, their boss, was leaving. Is that right?
It is correct and distasteful. Confidence undermining.
My God. Look, I hope you take whatever time you need to go through all of these projects penny by penny. I mean, I've heard this testimony today. Well, it'll cost jobs in my state. If somebody steals $50 million and goes and spends the money in their state, that's going to stimulate the economy, isn't it?
Yes, it will.
But that's still stealing, isn't it? And it's still illegal, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, they were spending money at the Department of Energy like it was ditch water. Their budget went from $60 billion to $160 billion since fiscal year 2021. It just sounds to me like there were a lot of people coming to the Department of Energy who had all 4 feet and their snout in the trough. And I hope you'll turn down the boondoggles and refer the thieves to the Department of Justice.
We will indeed. Senator, the one complication in there, too, is mixed in there are good companies doing good things honestly with credible plans.
And you're trying to separate the wheat from the chaff.
Yes, that's what we're trying to do. That's our job, and we're doing it. But there's a lot of chaff.
Let me ask you one final question. Let me go back to how many employees you have. Now, there have been some allegations today that you've cut tens of thousands of employees. Is that accurate?
Well, I think the allegations were thousands, and our head count will ultimately be reduced by thousands, but we are doing it slowly.
You've got 16,000 now?
Yes.
And you think you can do it with fewer than 16,000?
Correct.
What's wrong with that?
I think it's just common sense business.
Yeah. Businesses do it every day in the real world.
American taxpayers deserve it.
That's never happened in the federal government. I mean, it's easier to divorce your spouse than to get rid of a federal employee up here. That's not the way the world works, is it, Mr. Secretary?
It's not the way the world should work, and I give enormous credit to President Trump, who had the boldness to say, if there's a right thing that needs to be done and it's difficult, please do it. And so, yes, this is new territory. This is not what happens normally in the federal government, but it is what needs to happen periodically in the federal government. And I give the credit to President Trump, who's willing to take the heat and has set the departments free. Make the changes you need to make to better serve American taxpayers and American consumers. And across his administration, that's what's being done.
All right. On that note, I just wanted to clear that up, Mr. Secretary, because I don't know you to be a person who doesn't return his phone calls or take care of business. And my guess is you don't tolerate people around you who take a cavalier approach to their job. And I wanted to get that on the record. I applaud you for being able to do the job with fewer people. Thank you for being here today. Thank you to all of your staff. Y'all can't take the rest of the day off. It's still the hearing record's going to remain open for a week. Some senators may send you additional questions. They might submit additional information for the record within that time. It's their prerogative. If they have questions, I hope you'll try to answer them in a reasonable amount of time. I want to thank you for being here today, and the subcommittee will now stand adjourned.
Thank you, Senator, and the committee. Thank you.
Madam Secretary, I want to welcome, by the way, I want to ask you about the TRIO program that has been mentioned, and its sister program, Gear Up. We spend $1.858 billion a year on TRIO.
Yes.
That's $1,580 million a year. Is my math right?
I think that's right, sir.
And how long have we been spending $1,580 million a year on this program?
I'm not sure of the total length of time of the program.
More than 10 years?
Yes.
So that's over $1 trillion we've spent on this program. And in this program, this $1 trillion we've spent, we give this money, as I appreciate it, to colleges and universities to encourage poor kids to go to college. Is that right?
To provide some of those kids who have not yet been exposed to what it takes to get ready to go to college.
Okay. To encourage poor kids to go to college, right?
Yes.
Okay. And given that we've spent $1 trillion, how many poor kids who otherwise wouldn't have gone to college have gone to college and graduated?
A significant number, I would imagine.
How many?
I don't know exactly.
Isn't that a question we should ask?
I think so, and I'll be happy to get back to you with that answer. You know, the other thing about the...
But wait, Madam Secretary, I'm not fussing at you. Do we have that number?
I don't think so.
I'm looking, we don't have it.
I don't think so, because there is
Well, if we were, so we've spent $1 trillion, and we've given this money to universities, and they're supposed to encourage poor kids to go to college. But we don't know how many poor kids went to college who otherwise wouldn't have gone to college and graduated, right?
Correct.
Well, what do your audits show?
Well, that's the issue, and I mentioned it when I was
Are you able to audit?
We're not. We're not able to audit, and there are constraints against the TRIO program for its accountability. The other issue with...
Well, but I'm sorry to cut you off, but I don't have much time. So we spent $1 trillion. We gave it to the colleges. We said encourage poor kids to go to college. We don't know how many kids went to college because you don't have the authority to audit. How do you know these universities are not just using the money to operate instead of encouraging poor kids to go to college?
I'm not sure.
You don't know how?
No.
Because you can't audit.
Correct.
You understand hope is not a strategy.
Yes, sir.
I mean, if you told the average American, we just spent $1 trillion of your money, and we gave it to colleges and universities, and we said encourage poor kids to go to college, but we don't know how many kids went to college, who otherwise wouldn't have gone, and who graduated. You understand the average American would ask us what planet we just parachuted in from, right?
That's right. You know, Senator, if I may, there's one other issue on the TRIO program. What we have found
I'm
is...
going to run out of time.
Oh,
You can make it fast.
Take your time back then.
Let me ask you a question about our skirmish with Harvard. And I don't want to get into the merits. President Trump has said that Harvard is violating federal law and he's withholding their money. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And Harvard has responded, we've never violated federal law, but if we did, we give you a pinky promise that we won't do it again. Is that right?
Yes.
And then President Trump said, okay, no offense, but, you know, I just want to be sure. So why doesn't Harvard, I will give Harvard the authority to appoint a monitor, pick whomever they want. The federal government has the right to veto the pick. So if they pick their brother-in-law, that wouldn't be fair. And Harvard has said, no, you just have to trust us. You have to accept our pinky promise. Is that basically what's going on?
Well, and not only that, but Harvard did respond to our request for negotiations with a lawsuit.
Well, but,
so we're in the throes of litigation.
If Harvard would just agree to a monitor, that would solve the problem, wouldn't it?
Might serve part of it. The provost is what, vice provost, that we've asked that would come on to be one of the monitors on that situation.
I'm way over. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Senator Reed.
Well, thanks very much. Welcome, Madam Secretary. And I'm not a great mathematician, but I think you were talking about $1 trillion. I believe.
We'll see if I was right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here today. Mr. Secretary, I think I'm like most Americans. I agree with some of the things that you and the White House have done on tariffs, disagree with others. It's clear to me that the President listens to your advice about tariffs. So I want to spend my precious time trying to understand how you think. If Vietnam, for example, came to you tomorrow and said, okay, Mr. Secretary, you win. We're going to remove all tariffs and all trade barriers. Would the United States please do the same? Would you accept that deal?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. That would be the silliest thing we could do.
Why is that?
Vietnam has a $125 billion exports to us and imports from us $12.5 million. And you're thinking, Vietnam exports $125 billion?
I'm aware of the figures, but tell me
But where
why
do they get it from? They buy $90 billion from China, then they mark it up and send it to us.
So you
They're
wouldn't
just a
you wouldn't-
pathway of China to us.
You wouldn't accept that deal.
No, it's a terrible deal. We're the one with money. We're the one with the
then
store. Of
what's
course
the
they want
purpose-
us to take
What's
down.
the purpose of reciprocity then? Is reciprocity not one of your goals? Are you telling the president that we shouldn't seek reciprocity? If that's what you're telling him, why are you trying to do these trade deals?
What do we want? We want to encourage Vietnam to produce products they're great at producing.
But I want to get back to reciprocity. You just said you don't believe in you don't accept reciprocity as a goal. What are you negotiating in these trade deals?
Why would we open our bank account and their bank account when
Why are
ours is
you
10 times bigger?
negotiating trade deals? You're trying to get other countries to lower their tariffs and trade barriers in return for us lowering ours.
That's true for the things that they'll take from us.
That's called reciprocity.
Of course.
So are you or are you not seeking reciprocity in these trade deals?
We are absolutely seeking reciprocity with respect to things that can be reciprocal.
But you just said
But when they're
that
importing
if a
from
country-
China and sending it to us,
You just said
they're
that
not.
if a country came to you and offered you the ultimate reciprocity, no tariffs, no trade barriers, in return for us doing the same, you would reject that.
Of course, because they buy from China and send it to us. Don't you agree with me?
Suppose they said we won't buy from China.
Now we're talking. Now we're talking. If it was Vietnam,
would you accept that deal?
we would consider it. For what things? For
What would
products?
you want to change?
Well, there are certain products we want to reshore. We don't want other people making them. We want to make pharmaceuticals here.
All right.
We need to protect
All right,
ourselves for certain
let me ask you
things.
this, because I'm going to run out of time. Are trade deficits, are you advising the president that trade deficits are always bad in every situation?
No.
Okay. When are trade deficits good?
Trade deficits, for instance, let's say there was a company that had the cure for cancer. Let's call it Cancer Cure. And we were buying it and it was located in another country. We would obviously have a trade deficit with them because they have the only one of it. An example, our technology companies, our great technology companies, we're the only ones
so
with
a
it.
trade deficit is okay if they're products we really need.
If they're the only ones with it and we can't do it, then of course it's fine. But if we can do it, then we darn well better think about whether we're supposed to do it and whether we want to do it and if it's in our interest as a country to do
Here's
it.
what I'm getting at. I've heard you say that trade, well, strike that. I want to go, I'm running out of time. I want to come back to another subject. Tell me your understanding of the Trade Expansion Act.
I don't have a really good understanding of the term. I may know the act, but I may not know its title.
You're not familiar with the Trade Expansion Act of 1962 that gives the president almost unlimited authority to impose tariffs so long as you conduct an investigation? You don't know about that?
Oh, my 232s, of course I do.
Okay.
Sorry, I just didn't know the title of the plan, but of course I know.
Why didn't you advise the White House instead of proceeding under other statutes? Why didn't you advise the White House to proceed under the Trade Expansion Act?
The president chose IEPA because he could do it swiftly and he could do it sweeping in order to address the underlying problems that had created the $1.2 trillion trade deficit that was haunting the United States of America.
Have you read the opinion in VOS selections, VUS?
I have.
What role does the major questions doctrine play in that decision?
I am not a lawyer, so I can't speak to it with that kind of precision. That's a litigation that's under current investigation.
Are you familiar with the major questions doctrine?
Not offhand, but I did, of course, read the decision.
Well, about 3/4 of the opinion is on the major questions doctrine.
Again, I tend to not know the title. I know the topic and the details of it, but I tend not to focus on titles. Sorry.
I'm way over. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kennedy, thank you. Senator Shaheen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here today.
Thank you. Senator Kennedy.
Doctor, you don't look like Satan to me.
I hope not.
Some of my colleagues have accused you of everything but abandoning your children to wolves. Do you hate medical research?
I've devoted my life to medical research, Senator.
Do you hate the NIH?
I love the NIH. I think I said that in my Senate hearing, my earlier Senate hearing. I think it's the most important biomedical institution in the world.
This budget that we're debating today is the president's budget. When's the last time Congress took a president's budget and enacted it?
You know, the funny thing is, thanks to this process, I've got to talk with all of y'all.
When's the last time that happened?
I can't remember.
It's never happened in the history of ever.
I mean, everyone has strong opinions about what should happen, and Congress gets to have a say, and that's a good thing.
There's some changes that need to be made at the NIH, aren't there?
There are.
Okay. If I'm the president of a university, and I came to you at NIH and said, I need $10 million to research a cure for nephritis, and I took that $10 million and spent $5 million of it renovating the vice provost home, that would be morally repugnant, wouldn't it?
It would.
If I were a college president and I came to NIH and asked for $20 million to research a cure for dementia, and I took $5 million of that and used it to buy a yacht for my university, that would be morally repugnant, wouldn't it?
That would, and no, that's not.
And that's happened before, hasn't it?
That's not hypothetical, alas.
And there's been a lot of talk about the difference between direct costs, spending the money, for example, on researching cures for nephritis, and indirect costs, overhead. Harvard, for example, with a $53 billion endowment, spends 69% of its money from NIH on overhead, does it not?
I haven't looked at the latest numbers, but it's definitely in that range.
Yale spends 67.5% on overhead, does it not?
Again, roughly in that range, yes.
So all this money spent on overhead is money that's not being spent on medical research, is that right?
Well, it's for fixed costs of like lab space and things, but also sometimes for other things. So it's some of it's absolutely necessary.
Well, if I'm the Gates Foundation and I came to the NIH and said, I don't want money, I want to give you money. I want to give you $100 billion.
Yeah.
But you can't spend more than 10% on overhead. Would the NIH turn it down?
I wouldn't turn it down, no. In fact, I think that Gates Foundation overhead rates are roughly, again, in that range, 10 to 15%.
The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation limits overhead to 15%, does it not?
That's what I understand, something like that.
Now, I want you to think in terms of the American people and the importance of medical research. What do you think is more important? And we have finite resources, okay? And I support giving resources to NIH. I think NIH does breathtakingly innovative work. But if you ask American people, would you rather give money to research cerebrovascular disease, or would you rather give $142,000 to the Seattle Children's Hospital to study how to use telehealth to improve access to gender-affirming care? What do you think the American people would say?
Senator, the NIH should be a non-political organization, non-ideological, addressing the health needs of the American people.
But yet, the NIH also spent $120,000 in a grant to, quote, develop 3D avatars that help people work through gender dysphoria, end quote. Did it not?
It did.
And the NIH also spent $2,368,492, gave it to Brown University to study, quote, improving mental health among the LGBTQ community impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Did it not?
I think it did. Although I have to say that
Do you think that's more important than studying chronic lower respiratory disease?
I mean, I think we should address the real health needs of Americans, not divide Americans into we have to take into account the real differences in in the biology of people. But when we do that, we should do it in a way that really addresses their actual health needs. Not
I'm running out of time. What we have to do is spend the money on research.
We should, absolutely.
It's real simple.
I agree with you, Senator, 100%.
And some universities aren't, and NIH is not calling them on it. Isn't it a fact that a study showed between 2017 and 2019, auditors found 137 critical trials funded with taxpayer money involving 41,000 kids, and they didn't even report the results? What happened to the money?
Senator, I think that researchers we support have an obligation to share their data publicly with the American people, no matter what the result.
Otherwise, it's wasted.
Yeah. Agree.
All you want to do is fix NIH, don't you?
I do. I want to fix all those problems, Senator.
Thank Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to land this plane within my time. I want to know, I want to tell you briefly how I see the world and invite you to tell me if I'm wrong. I think President Xi and President Putin and the Ayatollah in Iran are working together. I think that President Xi is the quarterback. I think their goal is to have Russia dominate Central and Eastern Europe, to have Iran dominate the Middle East, and to have China dominate the Indo-Pacific while being free to roam in sub-Saharan Africa and South America and space. I do not want America to be the world's policeman, but I don't want President Xi or President Putin or Iran to be the world's policeman either. Do I see the world in the right way?
I would tell you, Senator, that we are seeing them. I mean, I don't know specifically what their ambitions are, but we do see them working together and doing some of those things against our interest.
General, I need you to, both of you fine gentlemen, to look us in the eye and tell us what you think. I understand you got to choose your words carefully. You don't want to get put on double secret probation. But we've got some hard decisions to make here. And there's a consensus, I think, in the Congress to give you more money. Because I think we need to spend more money on defense. But you're going to have to give us straight answers and tell us what you think. Mr. Secretary, am I right or wrong?
Senator, your question of one of your colleagues said it earlier, $185 billion is a lot of money. If we are given more money than is in the budget that you've seen, we will be good stewards of that and innovate even faster. I think what we are saying to this committee is we believe we can transform the Army with those amount of dollars as long as we are able to use them the way that we want to, and we are not
Tell
jammed.
me again the amount of money you need for the Army transformation.
We can use our current budget and transform the Army as long as we're able to spend it the way that we believe is right.
How much money do you think we need to spend as a country to maintain or either, depending on your perspective, reach parity with China?
I think the president has mentioned between the two bills $1 trillion for the DOD.
Okay. Do you trust Europe to spend more money?
I'm sorry, Europe.
Do you trust Germany to spend more money? They've talked a good game.
When I was out with NATO with Ambassador Whitaker and talked to a lot of our colleagues in the NATO countries, and as far as I could tell qualitatively, they believed it seemed to be that they were going to start to spend significantly more.
General, do you trust the United Kingdom to follow through and spend more money?
I mean, all I've gotten, Senator, is what they said that they were going to do with their new defense review, that they said that they were going to raise, their spending on defense.
Based
So
on your
it'll remain to be
experience,
seen.
do you believe them?
I mean, I think we're big believers in the, we'll see. I think action is what counts in some of this. There's certainly been a whole bunch of our allies that have done that when they've called for.
Tell me, General, how you think the war in Ukraine relates to our struggle with China. Are the two inextricably linked, or do the two have nothing to do with each other?
Well, I think, Senator, everybody is watching that fight right now, taking lessons from it. I think everybody's doing that. I think everybody is looking. I get a lot of comments.
General, I know everybody's watching. I got that part. We're all watching. Do you think what we do in Ukraine impacts our struggle with China or not? Give me a straight answer.
I do think our partners and allies are watching what we're doing and how that turns out. Yes, Senator, I agree with that.
All right. Last question, because I'm going to land this plane. How's our recruiting coming?
We're dominating recruiting and retention.
Why is it better?
That we made some structural changes and the return to a focus on lethality among our leadership.
What structural changes did you make?
We created a future soldiers prep program that gets soldiers or future soldiers who are right on the edge and helps get them a little bit more training before they join. And then there were problems with when we transitioned over to digital medical records. We were catching things when kids were younger, and we didn't have in place the mechanisms to get those waivers, and we have improved there dramatically.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Keep us at 5 minutes. Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, did I understand you to say that the reconciliation bill is the most extraordinary legislation you've ever seen? Did I hear that correctly?
There may have been some lost in translation there.
I was a little late. Tell me what tell me what the bond market's telling you.
Bond market's fine now, functioning well. It's pricing, it's reacting to economic news. There's adequate liquidity. Rates have come down pretty significantly from where they were a couple months ago. So I think I think inflation expectations have come down a bit from April, and in general, the bond market is functioning well.
Okay. Explain to me why we have seen in the last few months weakness in the dollar.
That's a great question. And of course, the Treasury Department is responsible for the role of the dollar. So I don't know. I think I would go back to the thought that markets have been digesting an unusually challenging set of circumstances, and have reacted the way they've reacted. The dollar's kind of stabilized now. In fact, it's moved back up here in the last couple of weeks a bit. And there are plenty of people who are still writing that the dollar is still overvalued. We don't have a view on that, of course, but I wouldn't really have an opinion on exactly why it is where it is.
Well, clearly there's a lot of geopolitical risk right now, which would lead one to conclude, all things being equal, that people would be flocking to the dollar and it would be stronger.
Well, and you have seen some of that here in the last few days. But again, I don't really have an official view I'd like to share on that. I think there are possible explanations, multiple possible explanations. Again, one of which is that some people still feel the dollar is highly valued.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I want to talk for a few minutes about tariffs and inflation. What does history tell us about tariffs and its impact on inflation or deflation?
So the thing is, we've been through a long period in which tariffs were going down. Remember, since World War II, really, it's been a process of lowering tariffs globally. So there just isn't a lot of modern learning on that. I think people look at the incidence of tariffs during the president's first term, but those were like 1/6 the size of what's people are estimating now. And they do find some effects on inflation. But remember, in 2019, when those tariffs were put into place, the economy was slowing. We actually cut rates 3 times. Inflation was running at 1.5%. So it was a very different time. This is different. I think one of the reasons why it's so challenging is that there really isn't a modern precedent. Yeah. And I think we have to be humble about our estimates. And we are very open to the possibility that transmission through into inflation will be less than we think, or maybe more than we think, which is why we're in a position of wanting to take our time and make a smart decision as we see how this unfolds.
Well, obviously, the size of the tariffs makes a difference, does it not?
It does.
And we don't know yet the size of the tariffs.
We don't. And we don't have a view on any of the merits at all. That's not our job. Our job is inflation, as you know, and maximum employment.
Will it also matter? Let's assume that there is upward price pressure. Would it matter how much businesses decide to pass on versus just eat? Does that make sense?
Yes, that matters. That is what matters. The question is, who's going to pay for the tariffs? Originally, it's the importer, but it gets passed along through the distribution chain to some extent to the consumer. The ultimate question of it is how much of it does show up in inflation. And honestly, it's very hard to predict that in advance. So we're watching to see, what shows up in measured inflation.
If the president's trade negotiators pursue reciprocity, which I define as both sides reducing, in a quid pro quo, reducing tariffs and trade barriers as much as possible. Ideally, in a perfect world, we would end up with two sides with zero tariffs and zero trade barriers. Would that be inflationary?
No, not at all.
That would cause the economy to roar, wouldn't it?
I think it would be
Yeah.
an
Okay,
outcome.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your endorsement, Mr. Chairman, of the reconciliation bill.
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, when you took over the Department of Justice and started going through all of the grants under your predecessor, did you find any that, in your opinion, constituted a waste of taxpayer money?
Yes, Senator. I don't have those specifically in front of me, but yes, Senator, there were many, and we are now going through those grants one by one. We are going through each of those grants because at the Department of Justice, we have a very obviously unique function in public safety. I will never let a grant be cut that's hurting women, victims of sexual assault, children, law enforcement officers. So we will look at those, each grant individually, to see what is fluff, what is DEI, no longer at the Department of Justice, and what are viable grants. And that money will go where it should go, to protect victims of crime and our law enforcement officers.
That's your job, isn't it?
Yes, Senator.
Okay. And you're doing that because it's your job.
Yes,
right?
Senator.
Okay. Some people say that you're being overly mean and unfair to foreign nationals who are in our country illegally. Would you care to address that?
I don't think I've been called mean recently, but
Oh, you've been called worse.
I think I was going to say probably a lot worse.
Yeah.
We will do everything in our power to get the illegal aliens out of our country who are committing crimes in our country. I have met with way too many family members who are parents, mothers, whose children have been murdered and raped by illegal aliens in our country. If that's mean, then I want to be as mean as I can be.
Well, I mean,
because we're going to get them out of our country and we're going to protect Americans.
We can agree, can we not, that legal immigration is legal?
Absolutely.
Okay. And we can agree, can we not, that illegal immigration is illegal?
Yes, Senator.
Okay. If you don't like the statutes with respect to illegal immigration, you can change them. But if you enforce them, as Congress has directed you to do, you're not being mean, you're just doing your job, aren't you?
Yes, Senator.
Okay. When you prosecute someone who's in our country illegally, not necessarily for a criminal matter, but just to enforce our immigration laws, are you careful to afford them due process?
Yes, Senator.
Okay. And would you consider that to be one of your priorities in terms of enforcing the laws against illegal foreign nationals?
Yes, Senator. I've been in a courtroom my entire career, and due process will be afforded.
Okay.
And the laws of this country will be enforced.
Could it be that some of the people who are criticizing you simply think that illegal immigration shouldn't be illegal?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But we will protect Americans. We will protect American families. We will protect these mothers of lost children who are murdered by illegal aliens. We will protect the widow of the trooper who was run down by an illegal alien and left a
Stop you a
baby at
second,
home.
General. I'm going to run out of time. Could it be that some of the people who are criticizing you, saying you're mean and otherwise for enforcing the law, believe that the board, we should have open borders. They believe that anyone should be able to come into and out of the United States whenever they want to. Could that be the motivation for that?
It could be, Senator.
Could it be that some of the people who are opposed to you think that by just allowing everybody to come into our country who wants to could help them in terms of winning elections? Could that be part of their motivation?
Well, Donald Trump won by an overwhelming majority. He won the electoral and the popular vote by an overwhelming majority, and he made it crystal clear to all Americans that he was going to close our borders and keep Americans safe. So they're running on the wrong platform.
That's what the law requires, right?
That's the law.
And you're just enforcing the law, is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
I will continue to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, how are you?
I'm well, sir. Thank you.
Good. General, you believe in diversity, don't you?
I do, sir, yes.
Yeah. And if I defined equity as a state of fairness and impartiality, you believe in equity, don't you?
Well, equity is a proxy for discrimination, unfortunately. In these
I know,
policies,
but I'm not talking about the proxy. If I define it as a state of fairness and impartiality.
Those are very important virtues, yes, sir.
Yeah, I agree with, I certainly agree with equity. And I watched it through your confirmation here. You strike me as an inclusive person as opposed to exclusive. You seem to like people.
I like to think so, sir.
So you believe in diversity, equity, inclusion, as most normal people understand those terms. But that's not what we're talking about here, is it?
And no, it isn't.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion, as many institutions and people in America like to use it, are talking about quotas, aren't they?
Yes, unfortunately, quotas have become the proxy for that vaunted slogan.
So when someone says diversity, equity, inclusion, we're talking about quotas. Let's be honest.
Quotas and discrimination.
Do you think, let's just take race. You can discriminate on any number of things, and shouldn't discriminate on any of them, not an illegitimate characteristic, but let's just take race. Do you think race should be used to harm a person?
It's illegal to use race either to affirmatively try to help or discriminate against an individual.
It's wrong to use race to harm somebody.
Yes, sir.
It's wrong to harm somebody because of their race.
It's illegal and un-American.
Yeah, it's okay to harm them legally and appropriately because they're an a-hole, but not because of their race, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, it's also wrong and illegal to help somebody because of their race.
That is correct.
I mean, that's illegal, right?
Under our Supreme Court precedents and our laws, that is correct.
Okay. But we still have institutions, even after the Supreme Court's opinion, we still have institutions in America, some in government, certainly some in the private sector. I'm thinking of some of our universities who insist on implementing quotas. And that's what you're going after, as I understand it. Am I right?
I'm aggressively seeking to end those quotas. They're illegal and un-American.
Okay. And that's really what we're talking about, is quotas. And the American people don't support quotas. They just don't. I mean, I think most first of all, most Americans don't think about race as much as people in Washington, D.C. do. The American people are, they understand that souls don't have a color. They believe that to a bear, all of us taste the same, like chicken. So this obsession now with diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's not really, I mean, it's a pretty phrase, but it's not diversity. Who's against diversity? That's like being against golden retrievers. Who's against equity? Who's against inclusion? So they pretty it up, but they're really talking about quotas. And it's illegal. And it's immoral. And it's un-American. And it exists. And I'm watching it happen in our universities. You know, I mean, Harvard, I wish it weren't the case. Incredible university, really bright people, but it's clear they believe in diversity and equity and inclusion and the right to hurt Jewish people. What did we come to? Any closing comments? I said too much.
No, Senator, I agree with you, and I will say that the whole of this government is dedicated towards providing equal opportunity for all Americans. And anti-Semitism on our campuses is a shocking problem, but we've actually made great progress just in these first 100 days on that front. So thank you for your attention to these issues.
General, don't let the bastards get you down, okay?
Thank you.
Senator Hawley. I'll yield to Senator Blackburn. Senator Blackburn.
All right, Senator Hawley, thank you. And thank you so much for being here with us.
Dr. Myron, do presidents, any president, generally appoint their enemies?
Thank you, Senator, for the question.
Don't thank me. It just takes up time.
I believe that when they nominate them,
do they generally appoint their enemies?
They don't believe they are when they're when they're making.
Do presidents, any president, generally appoint people that they agree with on social and economic policy?
I believe that presidents appoint people whose
That's
policies,
a yes, isn't it?
Yes.
Because we live in the real world, don't we?
Yes.
Are you personally responsible for everything President Trump says?
No, my role as the chairman of the
Before President Trump says something as President of the United States, does he call you up and say, Stephen, I'm about to say this and I want your approval? Does he do that?
Never.
And after the president says something, does he call you up and say, Stephen, was that okay? Are you okay with this?
Nope, I have an advisory role.
Okay. Now, sometimes intelligent adults, reasonable people disagree. Is that true?
Very often.
Is it part of your job description when you disagree with something the president says to call a press conference and say, he's wrong about this and let me explain to you why? Is that part of your job description?
Not as CH.
Is that part of the job description of any aide that you know of to President Biden?
No.
How about for President Obama?
No.
How about for President Clinton?
No.
We don't live in La La Land, do we? Do we?
No.
Now, monetary policy is important, and the Fed is in charge of it. But monetary policy is not the only thing that's important. Fiscal policy is important, isn't it?
Fiscal policy is extremely important.
And I don't care how low the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates. If the United States Congress is profligate in its spending, if it spends money like it's pond water, if it runs up $37 trillion in debt, and deficit spends to the tune of 7% every year, that also has an impact on employment and economic growth. and inflation, does it not?
Absolutely, and I think people often make a mistake by looking solely at monetary policy when fiscal policy is a huge driver.
And in fact, the Federal Reserve can lower short-term rates through the open market committee all you want. But that doesn't necessarily mean that long rates, 10 years and above, are going to go down, does it?
Not necessarily.
Right, because if the bond market counts too, doesn't it?
Of course.
If the bond, you can lower rates as low as you want to, but if the bond market thinks that inflation is on the horizon, those rates are going to keep going up or at least stay steady. Isn't that accurate?
Yes, the Federal Reserve does not control the long end of the yield curve.
Okay, so what Congress does matters, doesn't it?
Hugely.
My good friend Senator Warren says, you're Donald Trump's puppet. Are you Donald Trump's puppet?
Not at all. I'm very independently minded, as shown by my willingness to stray from consensus and have out-of-consensus views, and I believe that, I will continue to be as independent, in my thinking process, if confirmed.
We're going to hold you to that, Governor, future Governor. You need to call them like you see them. There's nothing wrong with politicians in Washington offering their opinions. You can't stop them. But we need a monetary plan that was put together by something other than vodka and darts. And that's what we had the Federal Reserve for. Now, you're going to get a lot of advice from politicians. I'm not saying they're always wrong. Even a blind chicken finds a mealworm now and then. But you've got to call them like you see them. And ignore, nothing wrong with people giving their advice, but ignore all the rhetoric from all politicians. Will you give me that commitment?
I do commit to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Director, you and the FBI, working with state and local law enforcement officials in Utah, have caught the assassin of Mr. Charlie Kirk. Is that right?
We have a suspect, yes, sir.
And you did that within 48 hours, did you not?
33 hours.
33 hours. Congratulations. We've had other political assassinations. Back in June, an assassinated Representative Melissa Hoffman, Mr. Hoffman, Senator John Hoffman, and Mrs. Hoffman in Minnesota. You and the FBI and Minnesota state and local law enforcement officials caught the assassin within 48 hours, did you not?
I believe that timeline's correct, Senator.
Congratulations. Sometimes we miss the forest for the trees. Good work. Did Mr. Kirk's assassin act alone?
As I've said since the beginning, Senator, it is very much an ongoing investigation, and I can't speak to the state charges. That's for the state to address on their own, but we are providing them with the same investigatory findings reporting the department. And as I noted to Senator, I believe it was Cornyn or Hawley, that there are a number of individuals that are currently being investigated and interrogated, and a number yet to be investigated and interrogated specific to that chat room. So we are very much in our ongoing posture of investigation.
So others could have been involved?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I asked you this last time you were here. Cash, you remember Mr. Peter Strzok and Ms. Lisa Page?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Strzok was an FBI agent. Ms. Page was an FBI lawyer. They were both very aggressive anti-Trump political activists who allowed their political opinions to affect their work at the FBI. Is that a fair statement?
I believe their text messages and their testimony that was secured by the OIG and DOJ speak for themselves.
In fact, Mr. Strzok and Ms. Page were having an extramarital affair, and at one point, Ms. Page texted Mr. Strzok, quote, "Trump's not ever going to be president, right? Right?" And Mr. Strzok replied, "No, no, he won't. We will stop it," end quote. Ms. Page resigned from the FBI. Mr. Strzok was fired. They promptly sued the federal government and the FBI and Justice Department for releasing their emails, which revealed all of this. The FBI settled that lawsuit for $1.2 million, gave Mr. Strzok $1.2 million cash, gave Ms. Page, who resigned. She wasn't fired, she resigned, she quit. Gave her $800,000. Who at the FBI made that decision to give them money?
That settlement was reached in the Biden administration when my predecessor was the director.
Who? Are you saying that Chris Wray did?
The only people that can decide that settlement are the Attorney General in conjunction with the director and the administration.
Okay, so you're telling me that Attorney General Garland and Director Wray decided to give them the money? Is
Yes,
that
sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
Now, when you took over the FBI, did you find instances of where, under the Biden administration, the FBI had weaponized the agency to push the political beliefs of President Biden?
Sorry, the last part.
When you took over the FBI, did you find instances of where the Biden administration had politicized the FBI to prosecute its political agenda?
Well, I won't speak for other people. Having been a target of that weaponization, having been a staffer on the House Intelligence Committee, having had the Justice Department weaponized against me for making the findings and leading the investigation of Russiagate, I know what that feels like. And that's why, as the FBI director, I'm committing to not ever have that ever happen again. But I'm also committed to fully investigating what was done, and that matter is still ongoing.
So I assume, I take it your answer is yes.
Yes, sir.
And you're firing those people, is that right?
Anyone that politicizes their job at the FBI will not work at the FBI.
Okay. You've heard some of my colleagues either implicitly or otherwise suggest that you have politicized the FBI to prosecute the political beliefs of President Trump. Is that true?
I don't know how that can be true when the stats that I cited, to include the 23,000 arrests, 6,000 weapons seized, 1,600 gang and criminal enterprise organizations, 4,700 children found and rescued, more enough fentanyl seized to kill a third of America. The men and women of the FBI are now on an apolitical mission, and this is why the numbers are historic in 7
Have you
months.
fired people because they voted for Vice President Harris?
I don't ask people who they vote for, and neither does the FBI.
Okay. But you've given people polygraphs, have you not?
Many people in the FBI take polys.
The FBI does that all the time.
Yes, sir.
Does it not?
Yes,
For
sir.
a long time, is that correct?
Decades.
All right. I want to ask you about the Epstein files. Have you seen the Epstein files?
I have not reviewed the entirety of it myself, but a good amount.
Would it be fair to say that Mr. Epstein trafficked young women, including, in some instances, minors, for sex to himself?
That was specifically the allegations in the 2018 indictment in the Southern District of New York.
Okay. Who else did he traffic these young women to?
In terms of what the investigation, again, going back to 2008, Mr. Acosta, who limited the investigation and limited the search warrants and limited the parameters of the investigation. The only thing we are able to speak to publicly, because he was given a non-prosecution agreement by Mr. Acosta, is that first time period from, I believe, don't quote me on this, 97 to 2001-ish. And then when the Trump administration courageously reopened it.
Excuse me for interrupting, but I'm going to run out of time. You've seen most of the files. Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files?
In the case file.
Okay. Now, President Trump has deferred to the FBI and the Department of Justice with respect to the Epstein records. He says it is your call about releasing them. And I understand that the department and the agency have decided to release them in cooperation with the House committee. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So you're releasing them a little bit at a time. Is that correct?
We're releasing as much as we can, but we are limited by 3 different court orders, and the department went back to each of those judges to waive those court orders or have them lifted, and each of those judges declined.
Will you release all of them, or at least as many as you can?
We will release everything we are legally permitted to do so. We are continuing to work with the House on the subpoena request. We have substantially complied with it, but we will continue to release whatever we are legally permitted to do so.
Okay. I strongly encourage you to do that. Cash, this issue's not going to go away. And I think the essential question for the American people is this. They know that Epstein trafficked young women for sex to himself. They want to know who, if anyone else, he trafficked these young women to. And that's a very fair question. I want to know that answer. And I think you're going to have to do more to satisfy the American people's understandable curiosity in that regard.
Mr. Chairman, may I just respond to that? I agree, Senator. And what we have done, and just to remind folks, the Epstein case files existed in the 2 prior administrations, in the Obama administration and the Biden administration, and they didn't release anything. And there was President Trump in the first administration that renewed charges against Mr. Epstein. And I know it's a little complicated to understand, but what exists in the Epstein case files was a direct result of the limited search warrants from 2006 and 7, which hamstrung future investigations because of the non-prosecution agreement. And multiple administrations had the opportunity to look at the entirety of that case file and recommend prosecutions against anyone that was trafficked under Mr. Epstein and anyone that participated in that trafficking. And the only person to bring charges was the prior administration against Mr. Epstein. Now, I am not saying that others were not trafficked and others were not involved. What I am telling you is that based on the information we have, and we have continuously and publicly asked for the public to come forward with more information. If there is, we'll look at it. But based on credible information, we have released all credible information, and the information that the Department of Justice and the FBI never releases is information on investigations that are not credible. And we don't release the names of victims who weren't credible, but in the same time, we don't release the names of victims who were credible. And so that's by law. And so the information we are releasing now is historic, and it is also to the maximum capacity that the law allows. And I know that's not going to satisfy many, many, many people. But if they wanted it done right, then the investigation from its origination should have been done right, and he should not have been given a get-out-of-jail-free card to do jail on the weekends for 12 hours a day, and he should have been investigated fully for the entirety of his crime and criminal enterprise, not just from 1997 to 2001.
Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, thank you for being here today. You'll recall well in January at your confirmation hearing before this committee, I raised the prospect of politically motivated retaliation, and you promised me, as you did other members of this committee, quote, every FBI employee will be held